In researching this video on how to raise progesterone levels naturally, I came across a lot of information, and some of this information I came across conflicted with one another. Has that been your experience? For example, one IVF doctor said testing progesterone levels was inaccurate and went on to discredit other natural routes to raising progesterone. So I asked the question, is it possible to raise progesterone levels naturally? Let's find out. Charlene Lincoln, women's health and fertility specialist. Take a moment to click the like button and subscribe for more tips on improving your fertility naturally. For this video, I reached out to one of my colleagues, Dr. Catherine Maloney. She's a natural fertility doctor and coach, a fertility coach, and she's worked in leading fertility centers in Australia. In this interview, I asked Catherine how progesterone is made, why it's important to fertility, how one becomes deficient in progesterone, and what to do to remedy that. And if tests are truly inaccurate, what is the best means to test and understand if this is an issue for you? I love particularly when Catherine talks about how BBT charting can become really stressful for women, and then she gives this great alternative suggestion to charting. Also, she discusses when one should use prescription progesterone cream. So here's the interview. Okay, so Catherine, can you explain to us how progesterone is created?
Yeah, sure. So progesterone is created from pregnenolone. So pregnenolone is the precursor to progesterone. And pregnenolone is primarily produced by the adrenal cortex, and it converts to progesterone from cholesterol. So this is very important to know, and also that progesterone is also released from the corpus luteum after ovulation occurs and for the first 10 weeks of pregnancy before the placenta takes over. So a new corpus luteum forms each time you ovulate, and it breaks down once you no longer need it to make progesterone. And progesterone makes your uterus a healthy environment for a developing fetus.
Okay, and why else is progesterone important?
Yeah, well, it helps to prepare the endometrium to receive and nourish a fertilized egg. So therefore, it improves implantation. And the chance of implantation success will be higher if the progesterone is adequate. We also need that progesterone to be an adequate amount in those first 10 weeks of pregnancy to make sure that the pregnancy is viable.
Okay, and talk to us about how does one become deficient in progesterone?
Yeah, so there's a few ways, and one is adrenal exhaustion. So given that progesterone is derived from the adrenal cortex, if we're exhausted and adrenally depleted, then progesterone production will be actually lower. The other thing that relates to this is stress. So progesterone is actually a precursor to cortisol. So when your body's stressed, it works to produce higher levels of the hormone cortisol, which is able then to manage the stress in your body. But because progesterone is the precursor to cholesterol, when cortisol levels increase, progesterone levels decrease.
Okay, so stress management of some kind is very important.
Very, very important. Yeah, okay. We always know that, that horrible thing where people tell you to relax and it will happen. It's not necessarily true, but we certainly know that high levels of cortisol, which come from high stress levels, will impact our hormonal production.
Okay, maybe after we talk a little bit more, you can suggest a couple things that help lower cortisol levels, if possible.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. And so what else creates progesterone deficiencies?
So not having enough healthy fats or cholesterol. So cholesterol, so progesterone is formed from cholesterol, and cholesterol is formed through eating healthy fats such as fish and nuts and eggs, olive oil and coconut oil. Now, cholesterol has a pretty bad name. Like, why would we want to increase cholesterol? Isn't everybody trying to reduce it? Mm-hmm. Well, yes and no. So, cholesterol and bad and fats were really demonized in the past. But what we know actually is that if women are not eating enough healthy fats, then they won't actually have enough in excess to then be able to be the precursors for their hormones, and their hormone production will be lower. So, most women who are, if you're a healthy weight and you're exercising, then you shouldn't have an issue with cholesterol. So then it's very, very important to be eating adequate levels of these beautiful, healthy fats.
Okay, thanks. And then anything else that's affecting progesterone?
Yeah, absolutely. So inadequate corpus luteum development. Now,
Okay.
what on earth does that mean? Well, the follicle is, once the egg is released from the follicle, this follicle then turns into the corpus luteum. And we can't have a healthy corpus luteum development if we don't have healthy and good, strong ovulation. So the follicle size at ovulation impacts the health of the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum secretes the progesterone. So if ovarian function is suboptimal, then the corpus luteum will not be optimal. So therefore, it will not secrete enough progesterone, which can cause a luteal phase defect.
Okay, thank you. And so let's talk about, I came across a video from an IVF doctor, and he brought up the point that when you test progesterone, it can be very inaccurate. So why was he saying that? What does that mean?
Yeah, look, I don't disagree with that. I think at day 21 or a 7-day post-ovulation progesterone test is very important to confirm if ovulation has or has not occurred. So, we want it to be over 20 nanomoles per liter or 10 ng per mil. And then we will know that that ovulation has in fact occurred. But progesterone doesn't stay at one level. It can change daily and possibly hourly through the luteal phase. So the way that we can assess what's happening with your progesterone levels is actually basal body temperature charting, which will show how the progesterone changes throughout the cycle. So, and particularly in the luteal phase. So progesterone, the reason this impacts our temperature is because progesterone actually reduces the heat loss mechanisms in our brain, and therefore increases the body temperature. So what we're looking for to know, we can actually see that ovulation has occurred if there's a sustained a sustained rise in the temperature over 3 consecutive days, which is at least 0.54 degrees Fahrenheit or 0.3 degrees Celsius, higher than the previous 6 consecutive days. So during the luteal phase, the BBT rises to between 97.7 and 98.3, or in Fahrenheit, or 36.4 degrees and 36.8 degrees. So we can actually see if there is inconsistencies, if there's changes, if there are dips in that luteal phase BBT temperature, we know that progesterone is not staying high and it is not adequate. So what we also might see is that before your period, that the temperature might dip, or it might start reducing maybe 2 or 3 days before you get your period, and that's too soon. So then we know that the progesterone is not adequate to take you that whole way through the luteal phase until you get your period, or until, if you are pregnant, you might, even if you've conceived, you might actually have a dip in temperature and the progesterone is reduced, and you will therefore get your period, even if you have created an embryo and were in fact pregnant, you will actually still get your period.
Okay.
Now, the other thing to know too is that low follicular phase temperatures may also indicate a hypothyroid state. So our BBT charting is also very important for that.
Right. And do you think that I always emphasize charting your temperatures as just, I just always encourage it, because I think that some people find it that maybe it's a little bit overwhelming, and then they want to just rely on an ovulation predictor kit. But with this, like you were just demonstrating, you get such a wealth of information, especially if you're working with a practitioner, and you can hand over several months of charts, right? There can be, they say, like it's a vital sign. So it's giving them so much information as far as your hormone levels, diagnosing possibly a thyroid issue, etc. So yes, thank you.
I agree with that to a point. So
okay.
because it can actually cause a lot of stress.
Okay.
So what I find is that women will be, oh my goodness, my temperature dropped, or, oh great, my temperature's high. Oh no, but it's dropping. And, each day they will analyze it and they'll get really stressed about it.
Okay.
And as we've already talked about, stress can really impact your chances of progesterone production. So there's a balance that needs to be found. I'm recently recommending a wrist, an armband called Temp Drop. And that's fantastic because you can wear it through the night. It checks your temperature, it sends it to an app. And I say to my women, don't look at it. Don't look at the temperatures. Just do your chart, do it for the month and send it to me and I will look at it. Because yes, it causes a lot of stress. It can cause a lot of stress. So there's a balance there.
Okay, well, I love that. And I would have been totally checking those temperatures, but yeah, that is a really good tip.
It gives us a lot of information. And sometimes too, I will say to, first we'll get your follicular phase temperatures. And then for the next cycles after that, the subsequent cycles, we might just ask you to just do luteal phase temperatures. Because as we know, or you might do it around ovulation, because we also know that temperature charting doesn't predict ovulation. So it doesn't necessarily help you to time intercourse with ovulation because your temperature will rise after you have actually ovulated.
Okay.
But it is very useful to show that you have in fact ovulated.
Right. Okay. And can I ask about cervical mucus? Because that could be really stressful as well, yes. Right?
Oh, no, I don't find cervical mucus stressful for women, to be honest.
It does. Oh, okay. Because sometimes women are like, I don't know if I feel it or whatever. If I feel
particularly when people are perimenopausal, they might not be getting as much cervical mucus. Yeah, that's true.
Then how are they assessing that they're in their fertile window? In this case?
So certainly we do use temperature to confirm ovulation, but to tell us when we are in fact ovulating to time intercourse with ovulation, I'd be recommending mucus observations and also doing your LH OPK testing. So that will let you know that you will ovulate, that you may ovulate within 24 to 36 hours after a positive LH surge. And then also looking at fertile mucus. Now, we do know that often in women over 40, their cervical mucus may be somewhat diminished, so that might be harder to look for. But I generally find that in speaking with women, we can find ways that you can accurately identify ovulation. And it also, some people get ovulation pain, which is also very accurate.
Okay, thank you. What about luteal phase defect? Tell us more about that.
So a luteal phase defect is when the luteal phase is too short and the progesterone drops before the period is due, so then a pregnancy can't be sustained. And also miscarriage can also occur early in pregnancy if this progesterone is inadequate. So because the decrease in progesterone is actually triggering menstruation and then the shedding of the lining. What are the possible causes of luteal phase defect? Well, we've discussed some of them, but one of them can also be excess estrogen in the luteal phase. So if we're estrogen dominant, then this will reduce our ratio so that the progesterone is lower. We also know that the progesterone signaling in the endometrium may be inadequate. Vitamin C can actually help with this. It can also be the small follicle size at ovulation, which is impacting the health of the corpus luteum. We know that aging actually does reduce the ovarian function, and high prolactin levels also potentially reduce the progesterone levels because they do impact a strong ovulation.
All right, so let's talk about some treatments. Is there natural treatments that work effectively in helping progesterone levels?
Yes, there are some. And also, I am also an advocate of people using pharmaceutical progesterone if needed, because progesterone is so important. We know that if progesterone levels are low, then it will trigger that menstruation. And even if we've created an embryo, that pregnancy can be lost. So certainly if people are having issues with low progesterone, it is worth a visit to your gynecologist or your fertility specialist to discuss this with them.
Okay.
But certainly in terms of natural fertility, natural solutions to low progesterone, we really need to encourage healthy ovarian function to support strong follicle development, healthy ovulation, and therefore strong luteal, corpus luteum development. There are particular herbs and formulas we use to do this, which is individual for each person, and certainly also depends on your estrogen levels and also a range of other factors. Now, we also need to restore adrenal function. So this will help increase the levels of progesterone being produced. We need to reduce stress so that the progesterone that is being produced then is not converted to cortisol to deal with stress levels. So exercise, I think, is excellent for reducing stress levels. Find something you love. Don't do exercise out of sufferance. Dance, swim, run, do yoga, do whatever it is that you love doing. Find an exercise that you actually want to do so that you are driven to do it. To support healthy progesterone levels, we also want to ensure normal thyroid function. We also want to support healthy estrogen clearance if it's needed in that particular person. We want to avoid toxins, have healthy weight management. And many people know of using Vitex as a herb to improve progesterone, but this is only effective for some people. And we absolutely need to make sure you don't have high estrogen levels if you're going to take Vitex. And then also absolutely stress reduction, and also to improve implantation, we need to support endometrial signaling by ensuring adequate vitamin C levels.
Okay, and so when you say adequate vitamin C levels, so how does one know that we have adequate levels?
Yeah, so it's quite difficult to get enough vitamin C in your day if you're just taking it from fruit and vegetables, because actually vitamin C is heat and light sensitive. So the longer that a fruit or vegetable has either been off the tree or out of the ground or off the bush, the less vitamin C it'll have. So most people will require some supplementation of vitamin C.
What type of vitamin C do you recommend? Because I hear about different kinds not being the quality type of vitamin C.
Well, I would say that all supplements should be prescribed by a practitioner so that you're getting high quality practitioner only supplements, and they will make sure that you're getting a good quality product that has good form of vitamin C and bioflavonoids.
Okay, well, thanks so much. That was great information, and you did wonderful.
You're welcome. Lovely to speak with you.
Yeah, you too. Okay, thank you, Catherine.
No problem, Charlene.
All right. Okay, drop in the comments if you have been diagnosed with low progesterone or suspect you have low progesterone. And if you suspect you have low progesterone, what drew you to that conclusion? I'd also be really interested in, if you were tested for low progesterone, what was it through, a blood test, or how was that tested? Also, make sure to download our free report on improving egg quality even at 40 plus. It's in the description below, and I came across that report when I was trying to conceive at 40 years old, and it really so much hope in me, and not like false hope, but really gave me kind of a game plan to know that regardless of my age, if I was still menstruating and ovulating, I could improve my egg quality, I could help my partner improve his sperm quality, and it was a huge paradigm shift. So I really encourage you to download that. Also, check out these videos that I created for you. I feel like they'll be really helpful, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks so much.